What makes a game something that you want to play over and over again? What creates that tension that brings you back? Is it one single thing? Maybe it's many things. I've thought a lot about the word replayability, but the more that I think on it, the more I realize it's different for everyone, whether a game keeps making it back to the table. Someone could just not enjoy playing games more than once. I, however, am quite the opposite of that. Here's my list for games that I played most in 2021. Now, Oath is a game that I had been so excited to play ever since the original design diaries that Cole Worley released on Board Game Geek. I knew early on that this game would be perfect for my game group, as we all love politics and table talk as well as storytelling. Oath boasted an experience that was unlike anything that I've heard of, and I truly believe that it will change modern game design. Oath is a continuous game in that one game's resolution generates a narrative and beginning for the next game. They call it the Chronicle. Now, throughout the game, you will be vying to win by dethroning the Chancellor or by winning in one of the 3 other visions within that game. No matter what you do, dethroning the Chancellor is essentially what will end up happening. Whether you do it directly or your character was shown a vision to lead the next era in a particular way. No matter how a player wins the game, they will become the Chancellor for the next one, and with that, the flavor of the game actually changes as well. See, there are all these different suits within the game, and depending on how the game was won and what type of suit was used, that can actually change what cards are being added in future games. For example, Nomad cards might add movement to the game and allow players many opportunities to travel around the board and find new denizens. Discord will bring out a lot of chaos, whether it's cards that actually remove denizens from the map, or bring about buildings that allow players to gamble away their favor. An example of this would be that in one campaign session that I've had with my friends, it was going really well at first, but then quickly we kept having victory conditions that were being won with Discord cards, and the land was in disarray at the beginning of every game session. There was gambling going on, cards coming and going, lots of favor manipulation, and tons of treachery. Where in another game of Oath that I had with a different group, there was a huge stronghold built with order cards, and it was this interesting dynamic where everyone wanted to become the Chancellor to take over that stronghold built by order cards. Both of these vibes were completely different and brought about a different flavor for the game of Oath. Now, every single thing that you do in this game makes you feel like you are writing a story in history in that moment. And that is one of the reasons why I continually came back to Oath last year. Next up is Tapestry, and Tapestry at its core is a civilization builder. But what made it so divided was its unique approach to that civilization building genre. Sure, Tapestry does include expansion, war, technology, and exploration, but the way that it does it is a bit more abstracted than you would expect. One of the things that I love most about the game of Tapestry is that the rulebook is only 4 pages long. That's because on your turn, you can only ever do one of 2 things. You can advance up one of the 4 tracks, being exploration, war, science, or technology, or you can gain more resources and jump into the next era of the game called an income turn. These are the only 2 things that you will be doing throughout the game. Now, each of these tracks is completely unique and provides an interesting puzzle for me to work out. See, the beauty of this game's strategy is the sequence in which you go up these advancement tracks. Am I going to go heavy on technology in the first era of the game? Or maybe I'll explore on the board and later start conquering the land to expand my territory. Now, the way to succeed is to actually find combinations of all these tracks using their abilities to supplement one another. And the other puzzle is actually figuring out how to best use your civilization or your capital city mat. These are going to be unique, and this really brings about different goals throughout the game and can also kind of give you an incentive for going for certain tracks over others. I just love how each of these elements is its own little brain burner, and you're really going to have to balance all 3 of these puzzles throughout the game in order to be very successful. However, I think that my love for this game really stems from the fact that it feels like a completely different challenge every time I play. I also love that instead of the game focusing on a specific time in history and on specific civilizations, this game seems to be a celebration of ideas and concepts and really brings about a celebration of humanity and what we've accomplished in the past, present, and eventually what we might accomplish in the future. It is a celebration of our progress, and it brings a feeling that I just want to come back to every single time I play. And now we're going to be talking about Imperium Classics and Legends, and this is another Civilization game that takes a very, very different approach on the genre. In fact, where Tapestry really focuses on humanity in general instead of one specific culture, Imperium Legends focuses on a very specific time period and very specific civilizations, all centered around ancient civilizations in history. Now, this is a game that is entirely driven by cards. It is a deck building game, one that does one of the coolest and most unique things that I have seen within deck building games, period. See, within Imperium, your civilization is essentially a timer, one that you control how fast it goes or how slow it goes, because whenever you actually cycle through your deck, you will add the top card from your nation pile to your current deck and then shuffle and repeat. Now, you don't know the order of those cards, and you don't know which ones will be coming in, but eventually those cards will run out. And at that moment that they run out, you will go from a barbaric civilization to an empire civilization. And then it gets even more crazy because every time you cycle your deck after that, you're gonna get a whole selection of technology cards, essentially, directions that you can pay for to add to your deck and really change the course of your civilization. Most of these cards are powerful and expensive and really give your civilization a lot of flavor. And on top of this, there is a pool of cards that every civilization can gain cards from and add to their deck. This includes other conquerable nations, land, and technology. And the game's real crunch is how much can you actually afford to add to your deck before it gets too bloated and your cycles start to slow down too much. However, on the other hand, some civilizations actually need to slow down quite a bit, like say the Utopians. Whereas if you're playing the Greeks, you're going to want to get through your barbaric stage super fast because they're really only effective in the empire stage. And then there are some civilizations that never ever became an empire in history, like the Vikings, and so that is not even in their goal. They don't become an empire. These civilizations are each very, very different from each other. I think the thing that I love about this game so much and what brought me coming back to it a lot in 2021 was that it was the only game that I actually love playing solo. It's the only game that I've ever truly loved playing solo so far. I'm looking for more, but currently as it stands, Imperium Legends and Classics is the only game that I've ever enjoyed playing solo. But I also have been enjoying it as a 2-player game with my wife as well. Now, the other thing that I love about it is that it is deeply rooted in history. Every single card that you see in your deck, you can feel what it represents in that civilization's history. It doesn't matter what you're playing, whether you're playing the big one-time ability cards in your deck and you know that those moments will go down in your history forever. Or maybe it's the small things along the way that made your civilization so successful. Either way, you can really feel those changes and you really feel like you earned a pat on the back at the end of this game after every single session. Wingspan is about birds, birds, and more birds. I have been playing so much Wingspan. We've been doing group games online or just 2-player matches between me and my wife. And really, because of that new app iteration, we have gotten so many plays of it last year. Me and my wife have been running an asynchronous game every week for weeks, and it has been such a blessing to play more Wingspan. This is a game about bird watching at its core. You are finding birds and placing them within one of the 3 habitats on your player board. Each habitat also activates an ability. When activated, the forest lets you collect food, the fields allow you to lay eggs, and the lake allows you to draw cards. Now, the coolest part about it is that as you play birds, your actions actually get stronger. And when an action is used, you also activate any birds in that habitat. Building awesome combinations with your birds is really the fun of the game. And there are also so many different birds that it'll really feel like you are continually discovering new ones. I think that's honestly what I love about it most. It is that discovery of new birds and strategies. With each expansion, there is so many more added, and I still feel like I haven't even seen every single bird in the base game. Honestly, this game just feels like it was made with such love and heart. I really commend the designer Elizabeth Hargrave for making a game about something that she was passionate about. And now I, in turn, find myself increasingly more interested in birds, which I truly never thought about before. Every game of Wingspan leaves me with a feeling of wholesomeness, a feeling that I can constantly improve on the puzzles presented to me at each gameplay. And I think that is one of the main reasons why I came back to Wingspan so much in 2021. And to no one's surprise, or maybe it is surprising, we've got Root at the top of the list. I truly talk about this game so much, possibly too much. It is my favorite game of all time. And that is because it truly gives me an experience that I cannot find anywhere else. No other game gives me the feeling that I get when I jump into this beautiful woodland. Honestly, this game just brings passion and joy out of me. I love to teach it, I love to play it, I love to watch it, everything about it, the experience as a whole, I am 100% invested in. But if you don't know what Root is, it is a war game of woodland creatures where each player is going to be vying for control of the forest in a race to 30 victory points. Now, how each faction gets those victory points is completely different, and this really creates a very awesome asymmetric puzzle for each player to play around and play as. While the Marquise de Cat wants to expand territory and drop down buildings to win, the Woodland Alliance wants to spread sympathy for their revolution and revolt against all of their opposers. Now, the Eyrie Dynasty are also about placing buildings called roosts to score points. However, they also must maintain a puzzling decree that they must add to and follow fully, else they will fall into turmoil and must replace their nation's leader. And then there is also the Vagabond, who is just one piece that runs around doing quests, exploring ruins around the map, maybe making coalitions or aiding their friends to win. That's just the base game 4 factions, but there are actually 6 other completely different factions to explore now within the game. Honestly, I could go on and on about it, but I would rather you hear me discuss why it is my favorite game of all time. So if you are really interested in why I played this amazing game 89 times last year, go ahead and click this link above, and I will see you there.